So today we're diving into one of the most incredible political stories of the 20th century. We're looking at South Africa's journey in just 4 unbelievably tense years, from the absolute brink of civil war to becoming this global symbol of democracy. I mean, just try to picture it. It's April 1994. All across the country, you have these massive, snaking lines of people, millions of them, just waiting. Some for hours, some for days, and for almost everyone there, it's the very first time in their entire lives they have ever been allowed to vote. This was so much more than an election. It felt like the entire country was being born again. And that begs the huge question, right? How on earth did a nation so fractured, so crippled by segregation, a place that was basically on the verge of total collapse, manage to pull off the impossible? When all signs pointed to disaster, how did they find a path to peace? Well, let's break it down. All right, so to really get how miraculous 1994 was, we have to rewind the clock a little bit, to the late 1980s, because the foundations of that old oppressive system, they were starting to seriously crack. The whole country was in crisis. First off, what exactly was this system? Apartheid. I mean, it was this brutal, all-encompassing policy. It wasn't just about separating people. It was a whole legal system designed from the ground up to make sure that all the power, political, economic, social, you name it, was kept in the hands of the white minority. It literally stripped the black majority of their land, their rights, even their citizenship. By the late 80s, the whole thing was at a breaking point. The rest of the world had pretty much cut South Africa off with crippling sanctions. The economy was a mess, just buckling under the weight of it all. At the same time, there was widespread violence inside the country, and the cost of just maintaining this huge security state was becoming impossible for the government. The regime was completely and utterly cornered. And when a regime gets backed into a corner like that, well, they did something nobody saw coming. What happened next sent a massive shockwave not just through South Africa, but around the entire world, and it kicked off the 4-year journey that we're talking about today. What's just staggering is how fast it all happened. On February 2nd, 1990, President F.W. de Klerk stands up and unbans liberation movements like the African National Congress. I mean, that alone was a political earthquake. Then, just 9 days later, the aftershock hit, the moment the whole world had been waiting for. Nelson Mandela, the most famous political prisoner on the planet, walked free after 27 years. Just let that number sink in, 27 years. But his release wasn't the end of the story. No way. It was the beginning of the most critical and most dangerous part of it all, the negotiations. Right, because freedom for an entire nation wasn't just going to be handed over. It had to be built, meticulously, painfully, and brilliantly negotiated. The next few years would be this incredible, high-stakes process where the future of the country was literally being hammered out, word by word, line by line. And you can see here, the path was anything but straight. The first big attempt, called CODESA, got everyone to the table, which was huge, but it eventually just collapsed. The big sticking point? The old ruling party wanted a kind of safety switch, veto powers for minorities, but the ANC insisted on a simple, straightforward majority rule. It took a second, bigger process to finally break that deadlock and create the interim constitution that made the '94 election even possible. And so much of this came down to the key people in the room. You had the giants, of course, Mandela and de Klerk, but a lot of the really tough, behind-the-scenes work, that fell to guys like Cyril Ramaphosa for the ANC and Rolf Meyer for the National Party. They were the ones having the secret talks, figuring out the details that kept the whole thing from blowing up. And believe me, it came so close to blowing up, because while all this political talk was happening in negotiating rooms, out on the streets, the country was burning. This was one of the most violent periods in South Africa's history, an absolute crisis. This was the brutal reality. It felt like for every single step forward they made in the talks, there were 2 steps back on the streets. The threat of everything just descending into chaos was constant. These are just 3 examples of moments when the whole thing nearly fell apart. The Boipatong massacre was so awful that the ANC walked out of the talks completely. But maybe the most dangerous moment of all came in April 1993, when a really popular leader, Chris Hani, was assassinated. The entire nation just held its breath. Everybody thought, this is it. The civil war is starting now. But then Nelson Mandela, and remember, he's not even president yet, he goes on national television. And his powerful, calm appeal for peace, it's widely seen as the single thing that pulled South Africa back from the abyss. It showed everyone who the true leader of the nation really was.
And somehow, against all odds, the nation held it together. An interim constitution was finally agreed on, a date was set, and after centuries of pain and division, it was time. It was time for the people of South Africa, all of them, to decide their own future.
And the results, well, they were decisive. You can see the numbers right there. Nelson Mandela's ANC won in an absolute landslide, pulling in over 12 million votes. The old ruling party, the National Party, came in a distant second. The people had spoken, loud and clear. This chart really paints the picture, doesn't it? The ANC got almost 2/3 of the entire vote. Now, that's a massive mandate, but it was just shy of the supermajority they would have needed to write the final constitution all by themselves. And what did that mean? It meant that spirit of negotiation and compromise had to continue. And so, the final chapter of this incredible 4-year saga could begin. The election was over, the worst of the violence had passed, and a brand new nation was officially ready to be born. On May 10, 1994, it became a reality. Nelson Mandela was sworn in as the first democratically elected president of South Africa. And in a true act of reconciliation, he didn't just form a government of his own party, he created a government of national unity, even bringing F.W. de Klerk, his former jailer, on as a deputy president to help rebuild the country together. You can hear the vision in Mandela's own words from that day. He said this wasn't about winning or losing, it was a covenant, a promise, to build a new kind of society, what he called a rainbow nation where every single person, black and white, could finally walk tall and be treated with dignity. So when you step back and look at this whole story, it really makes you think, doesn't it? In a world that often feels like it's being pulled apart by division, South Africa's journey from the edge of war to a unified democracy serves as this incredible testament to what's possible with leadership and compromise. And it forces us to ask, what lessons can this impossible achievement offer all of us today?